I survived a home invasion. Hi, I'm Tom, and when I wanted to surprise my girlfriend Shelly, I booked us a romantic weekend at a nice cabin in the woods. But our vacation went like nothing I could have expected. We'd been dating for a couple years and had even bought our own place together. I figured it was the right time to propose. I arranged for us to stay in a cabin in the middle of the forest, miles away from anywhere. It had a hot tub, open fire, everything you needed for the perfect romantic getaway. I had plans for us to sip champagne while we sat in the hot tub under the stars. It was going to be amazing. But on the drive down to the cabin, Shelley seemed really off. I asked her what was wrong, but she said everything was fine, which made me feel even worse. It's never fine. I hoped when Shelley saw the cabin, she'd be happy, but it was dark when we arrived, so she couldn't see how pretty it was. I asked if she wanted to go in the hot tub, but she said she was tired and went straight to bed. I wanted us to snuggle up in front of the open fire and hang out together, but that wasn't going to happen, so I joined her in bed. She pushed me away when I tried to hug her. When I woke up the next morning, I was alone. I thought maybe Shelley was making me breakfast, but she wasn't in the kitchen. I found her sitting outside, drinking coffee. I asked her what was wrong, and she started crying. I got really worried, so I asked her again to tell me what was up. At last, she said she'd been having an affair. I couldn't believe it. I thought we were so happy together, and instead she'd been cheating on me. She wanted to talk, but I didn't have anything to say. I grabbed the car keys and drove off. I never wanted to see her again. But as I got further away from the cabin, I realized she'd left her cell phone in the car. With no phone and no car, she was stranded. Although I was really mad, I couldn't leave Shelley stuck in the middle of nowhere, so I turned back to return her phone so she could order an Uber. When I walked into the cabin, Shelley was sitting in front of the fire. She looked so small and miserable it broke my heart. Even though she'd cheated on me, I couldn't leave her. I loved her too much. We talked things through and decided to give it another go. I didn't tell her I'd been planning to propose. We couldn't think about marriage right now, but she agreed to go to couples therapy with me. Maybe we'd be ready to get married in a few months. We fell asleep that night in each other's arms, but we were woken up in the middle of the night by someone banging on the door and yelling Shelley's name. "That's Paul," gasped Shelley. "I told him to leave me alone, but he's been stalking me. He won't take no for an answer." That's right. The guy she'd been seeing behind my back had come after us. "Stay here," I told Shelley. "I'll make him leave." When I answered the door, I wasn't so sure I'd be able to make him do anything. Paul was huge. There was no way I'd win in a fight against him. But I didn't let him see I was afraid. I told him Shelley wasn't interested. He ignored me and called out for her. She came over and told him to leave. She said she wanted to be with me. That's when Paul pulled out a gun. Shelley screamed, and I pushed her behind me. I'd never been so scared in my life, but I told Paul to calm down and leave or I'd call the cops. I didn't think he'd listen to me, but suddenly Paul put the gun away and left. Shelley was shaking, so I got her a whiskey and we went back to bed. We were both too stressed to sleep, so I held Shelley as she sipped her drink. At last, she fell asleep in my arms, but I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. How could have Shelley gotten involved with somebody like Paul? As I sat there, thinking about why Shelley cheated on me, I heard the sound of glass breaking. Paul had come back. Carefully, I pulled my arm out from under my girlfriend, but I wasn't careful enough, and she woke up. "Stay here," I whispered. "I think I heard something. I'm sure it's nothing." I crept out onto the landing. I could hear voices downstairs. It wasn't Paul. Someone had broken in. I went back to Shelley and told her to hide in the closet and call the cops. She wanted to come with me, but I told her she'd be safer hiding. I pulled on my robe and grabbed my cell phone before going out to the landing. I wanted to know more about the burglars. Maybe I could scare them off. She said she'd have an expensive engagement ring, as well as a stash of cash, I heard one of them say. She said we could keep those as long as it looks like an accident. What were they talking about? Bang! Somebody hit me over the head from behind and I blacked out. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor in the living room. I tried to sit up, but my hands and feet were tied. I looked around. Paul was lying on the floor next to me, but no one else was in the room. "Paul," I whispered. "Paul." He didn't answer. I wriggled over to him and had to bite back a scream when I got closer. He was passed out on the floor. The burglars had hurt him. I had to get free. I had to rescue Shelly before they killed her, too. I heard voices, so I closed my eyes and pretended to be unconscious as two people walked into the room. "You should have been quieter," a woman said. "This would have been much easier if you'd heard him in his sleep." That was Shelly. She was working with the guys who had hurt Paul, and she wanted to hurt me. I had to get out of there, but what could I do when I was tied up? Someone kicked me, and I had to pretend it didn't hurt so they'd think I was still knocked out. "What are we going to do?" asked the man. I listened as they talked about the best way to kidnap me. Apparently, Shelly hadn't expected Paul to follow her. He was just someone she'd been with a few times, but he became obsessed with her, so she broke it off. Now they were going to use poor Paul as an excuse to get rid of me. I heard them talk about how they could set things up to look like Paul and I fought and hurt each other. Just when I thought things couldn't be any worse, I heard the sound of Shelly kissing the guy. I breathed a sigh of relief as I heard Shelly and the man go upstairs. I was safe now, but if I didn't get free by the time they were down, I was gonna be in danger. I'm not the most flexible guy, but I managed to get my hands in front of me. Using my teeth, I got the ropes off my wrists and then untied my legs. I was free, but what now? I looked over at Paul and had an idea. I hated the thought of moving him, but he had a gun and I needed it. I found Paul's gun in an ankle holster. I took it and checked to see how many bullets it had. It was empty. Paul was never going to shoot me. I patted him over and found some bullets in his shirt pocket. Before I could load the gun, I heard Shelly and her lover coming out of the bedroom. Quickly, I ran over to the front door, but it was locked and the key was gone. I raced into the kitchen, looking for somewhere to hide. Shelly was coming closer. If she found me, I was a dead man. I ran into the laundry and shut the door behind me. The door didn't have a lock, so I dragged the washing machine over to block the door. I heard Shelly scream in anger when she saw I was gone. "Tom," she yelled, "you get back here." "Not a chance," I said to myself as I started to put the bullets in the gun. My hands were shaking so much I spilled them over the floor, but at last I managed to load the gun. I could hear Shelly and the man looking for me. I had to get out of there. There was a tiny window at the back of the laundry room. I didn't know if I'd be able to fit through it, but while I was thinking through my options, there was a bang on the door. They'd found me. I ran to the window and tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. There was a scraping sound as my attacker started pushing the door open. I had run out of time. I smashed the window and pushed myself through it. To this day, I have no idea how I fit through such a small space, but I was filled with adrenaline and didn't notice when I cut myself on the broken glass. I landed heavily on the ground and started limping away from the house when suddenly someone grabbed me. "Got ya," he said. I'd forgotten about the other burglar. In a panic, I kicked him hard in his stomach, and the man collapsed, and I kept running. There was a roar from the window. I turned and saw the other burglar snarling at me. He tried to push himself through, but he was too big. "Tom!" someone shouted. I turned and saw Shelly running towards me. She must have come out of the front door. "Stay back," I warned her. "You can't hurt me," she said. "You love me." She came up close and stepped forward like she was going to kiss me, but I saw the glint of a knife in her hand. "You're right. I can't hurt you," I said, bringing up the gun and hitting her over the head hard enough to knock her out. She collapsed and I ran off into the forest. When I was far enough away, I took out my cell and called the police. Soon, the place was crawling with cops. I ran to the cops for help. I was so relieved that they had finally come to save me. But then, I saw my girlfriend talking to one of the cops. She looked so innocent, as she was crying and telling the cop her version of the story. Suddenly, she pointed at me and screamed, "Here he is!" The cops hurried up to arrest me, and before I knew it, I was at the police station waiting to be interrogated. Turns out my girlfriend had told the police that I had planned all of this to hurt her after I found out about the affair. This was crazy. The officers interrogated me for hours, and I told them the same story every time. Eventually, the police officers believed my story. Not because they believed me, though. It was after they found out that my girlfriend and the other guy ran away from the hospital they were staying in. Until this day, no one knows where they are. And to be honest, I'm just glad they're gone. Did you like my story? Remember to subscribe, comment, and share for more great videos.